I will go over the main event on this program quickly because once again, it was a letdown. For the Diamond Ring, the second annual Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal, MJF won it last year. This year it came down to, as we remember last week, MJF and the boss's favorite wrestler, my little dog Pockets. And so now we are treated again to the sight of a qualified, talented professional having to do a Make-A-Wish match with a guy dressing up, and not even dressing up as a wrestler. He doesn't dress like a wrestler. He just plays one that gets indulged because the boss, likes him. Because he's figured out a way to suck up to the boss, the nepotism and favoritism deal. So at least MJF jumps him at the bell. MJF is smart. He knew he couldn't fucking do anything competitive with this guy back and forth and it not be shit, right? So he jumps him at the start and starts getting the heat on him, and the guy sells. It's like watching a pro work out with a kid at a training seminar. But MJF kept control of it. He was the best heel on the show so far because at least he works like a heel and takes shortcuts and cheats. But in this thing, they've set up that their big annual battle royal that leads to a TV main event on national television can possibly be won by, or at least is definitely going to involve, one of their comedy job guys. So how can this be a big deal? It's like if the first Royal Rumble or the second Royal Rumble was won by, fucking Barry Horowitz. It's not to knock Barry. They went to the break. After the break, Pockets just made a huge comeback out of nowhere, doing all the goofy shit that he normally does. And I thought it's ridiculous to put MJF in this position, but at this point, nobody on the roster has any importance to gain new viewers. They've nullified that on everybody. They've cut everybody's balls off. So it's not crucial now that a top guy that could be an attraction is being made to stooge for this idiot. But the joke wasn't funny at first, and it's over a year old now. So it's way past not funny. MJF went to give Pockets the faceplant piledriver deal that he does in the ropes, and Pockets backdropped MJF out. Actually, MJF had to jump and go out himself because Pockets didn't put any oomph in it. And then the entire inner circle, the top heel group, including a former WWE champion and a goddamn current Bellator mixed martial arts fighter, had to stand there while the little fucking goof dove on him. And then MJF finally hit his move, and he got a 2 count with the feet on the ropes. Then they did comedy spots. The old deal where Eddie Guerrero used to do this primarily. He didn't start it. He didn't invent it. It's been done before. But where the fucking baby face or the guy that people's sympathy is behind will throw the heel a fucking gimmick like a bat or a chain or something. When the heel catches it, then the baby face would go down and like he'd been hit, right? Eddie Guerrero would do that. And the referee would turn around and say, "Oh, you motherfucker, you hit him with the deal," right? Well, MJF gets the ball bat and then pitches it to fucking Pockets and lays down, but Pockets doesn't catch the bat. So MJF gets mad and fucking grabs the bat back, and then Pockets takes a bump, and the referee turns around and sees MJF with the bat. But he didn't buy that MJF had hit Pockets with the bat. He didn't disqualify it. He's just asking him and ranting at him about it. So what were they doing that spot to begin with if it wasn't going to be an automatic disqualification when the referee saw this? And when they had, let's face it, it's a goddamn favor to this little goof that they allow him to play. He's a piece of shit and everybody knows it. He's an embarrassment. He weighs 160 pounds. His whole gimmick makes wrestling look bad. But at least they had something going. And then they start both obviously cooperating with each other to do this comedy bullshit and ruined what small, minuscule portion of a decent match that they had going. And when they started doing that back and forth with the bat and the thing, and the referee then said, "Oh, blah, blah, blah," I fast-forwarded. I said, fuck it. I can't even watch MJF, who was one of my only favorites, because he's just being brought down to their level. So I fast forwarded to the very last of the program where Miro, the Bulgarian brute, dressed in his designer finest, comes out to help screw pockets. So MJF, that is supposedly they're looking at as the future of the company, a young star, he's in the inner circle, he's a top fucking guy. He needs help not only from people in his group, like Chris Jericho and the MMA fighter and the former tag team champions, blah, 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 whatever the fuck, but also he needs help from an ex-WWE guy to come out and beat this fucking jack off with his hands stuck in his pockets. And Miro, once again, the way he was dressed, as I've mentioned, he told his little buddy Pip Sabian to go over to Cox's and get him a seersucker suit, but Pip got mixed up and went to Sears instead, and it didn't turn out well for poor old Miro. And that was the end of this program. At least I think it was. I couldn't watch anymore. I didn't want to pay attention to that. Did I miss anything with MJF's continued downward spiral?
That was indeed the end of the program. I don't blame MJF here.
Well, no, I do blame him for cooperating with some of this shit.
And once again,
I guess I can see not being able to say no to Chris Jericho, but you can't go to Tony Khan and say, look, in all seriousness, look at this fucking jack off. Enough's enough. I'm not going to work with him.
There's no one in that company that thinks that way. They all accept him. They all accept Marco Stunt. They all accept Orange Cassidy. You can go.
They all accept their paychecks, and that puts on them some fiduciary responsibility to do things for the positive betterment of the company, rather than when the leader, the owner, is an inexperienced amateur goof and needs to be not held accountable because he can't be, because he's not accountable for his program because he's in over his head. You can't hold a veterinarian accountable for not being able to do a successful brain transplant on a human. It's not his fucking field. So somebody that's a professional in this chosen occupation should say to Tony Khan, let me explain something to you. Whether you want me to or not, I'm going to get over and draw you some money or get you some ratings, and I'm not fucking playing with these goddamn indie outlaw goofs. I'm going to do things right. And you can fucking push me. You've got me signed, and I'll produce for you. Or you can have me working with these fucking little dick licks, and I'll be as meaningless as everybody else on your roster. But that's up to them.
It's never going to happen. Because first of all, Tony Khan thinks he knows all that he needs to know about being a booker and a promoter. And secondly, these guys are all, in some cases, they're happy they're finally getting an opportunity, and they're happy that they have a boss who wants to be their friend. And in other cases, these are guys who work for WWE, and they're happy not to be working under Vince McMahon. You have a bunch of people really happy to get those checks. Different reasons.
They just had Shaquille O'Neal on the program, and nobody could remember a word he said 30 minutes after it was over with. And nobody gave a shit about the issue that he was involved in as it was happening. That takes talent. That's almost impossible to do. When you have a guy who's one of the most recognizable sports figures in the world, and he appears on your television program, and you can't even remember the shit that happened afterwards because it was so boring and stupid, what the fuck are you? That's almost a gimme. That's a layup.
Hey, listen, like I said before, every single match had a run-in or some kind of angle at the end of it. Every backstage thing almost had the same thing.
But
it's hard. If we weren't,
they're still apologizing. They're still drinking the Kool-Aid. They're still but what about and they're still taking up for these guys. They can't admit it. They just can't admit it.
Who's they?
They're fans. The same number of fans that watch every Wednesday night that never gets bigger and ain't never gonna get bigger is still saying, oh, they're the greatest thing in the world. When you've, in the same program, you can fuck up an appearance by Shaq and fucking make people disinterested in MJF and in Cody for as far as that goes, in all of your best talent because they're doing such stupid things. This is almost impossible to do on purpose. Johnson City ain't the only place that needs a refrigerated truck for all the people that are getting buried.
And for the record, whether it's Sting, and I think a lot of it's Sting, or whether it's the Omega angle, which they all immediately ran to expose and talk about the behind-the-scenes mechanisms of, they did do their second number in, I think it was, 955 this week, and I believe it was their best number in a long time. And I think that's more Sting than last week, because no one knew Sting was going to be on last week.
Right.
This week, you kind of expected he'll be on. Well, you were told he'll be on. So I think this week's more of a reflection of Sting than last week was, but...
That's what I'm saying. What are they going to do to get to 1 million people? Drop the cow? The old Saturday Night Live sketch. Is CM Punk the only person that could get him to 1 million people?
No. I mean, look. He may be the only free agent. He may be the only free agent.
What about a good program that people could follow along with and really enjoy every week? That might get them to 1 million people.
They're hot-shotting every segment.
But that's what I'm saying. When you're hot-shotting everything and everybody, and you've signed Sting, and what in the world is next, and how do you follow that? And you still can't get to 1 million people. And 1 million people is half of what Raw or SmackDown are doing, and they're stinky fucking programs. This is where we're going with wrestling, where the viewership of a national television program for wrestling in 2020 equals the top 4 markets of the old days of the territories. Yeah, okay. Same amount of people were watching wrestling in Memphis, New Orleans, Houston, and St. Louis as the entire country watches AEW with Sting. I don't know. Your closing thoughts, my boy?
I hate NXT. It sucks so bad. AEW, I get a perverse joy out of several things. Other things, I watch like a lot of the audience. I can't wait to hear what you're going to say about it. They're doing way too much. They have too many people who are not ready for prime time. But it's better than NXT. I'll take AEW over NXT by and large every single week. Every now and then NXT does something and they've got some talented people there, but the presentation sucks. The booking sucks. It's turning into a mini version of Raw. I don't like it at all. And that's all I got to say.
Well, just remember, folks, next week, it'll be Brandy Rhodes with Cody in the corner against Jane Cargill with her little buddy Shaq.
They didn't announce the match, did they?
No, I'm kidding.
You never know. I mean, they announced Shaq's going to be on the show on social media. They didn't even announce it on their TV show. That one of the all-time NBA legends is going to be on their show.
Hey, and that's another thing. If he would have done it then, nobody would have known it was done. They could have held it a week and advertised it on their television. But they don't get it.